Yeah, maybe you've answered this before? A simulation.
I've had so many simulation discussions, it's crazy.
Okay, so, because...
In fact, it got to the point where basically every conversation was the AI/simulation conversation. And my brother and I finally agreed that we would ban such conversations if we were ever in a hot tub. Okay. That was like, because that really kills the magic.
Hot tub, so the idea is, right, any sufficiently advanced civilization could create a simulation that's like our existence. And so the theory follows that maybe we're in the simulation. Have you thought about this? And
a lot.
Are we?
Even in hot tubs?
Know,
so much so it had to be banned from a hot tub.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not the sexiest conversation.
Are we in? Are we in?
I think here's, the strongest argument for us being in a simulation, probably being in a simulation, I think is the following. That 40 years ago, we had Pong, like 2 rectangles and a dot. That was what games were. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. Mm-hmm. And soon we'll have virtual reality, we'll have augmented reality. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then the games will become indistinguishable from reality, just indistinguishable. Even if that rate of advancement drops by 1,000 from what it is right now, then you just say, okay, well, let's imagine it's 10,000 years in the future, which is nothing in the evolutionary scale. So given that we're clearly on a trajectory to have games that are indistinguishable from reality, and those games could be played on any set-top box or on a PC or whatever, and there would probably be, billions of such, computers or set-top boxes, it would seem to follow that the odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions. So tell me what's wrong with that argument.
Is the answer yes?
The argument is probably. But I just like, is there a flaw in that argument?
I'm
not sure what the error.
No. The argument makes sense. So the assumption then is that somebody beat us to it, and this is a game.
No. There's a 1 in billions chance that this is base reality.
Oh, okay. What do you think?
Well, I think it's 1 in billions.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems to be like clearly what it suggests. Right. And actually, arguably we should hope that that's true, because otherwise, if civilization stops advancing, then that may be due to some calamitous event that erases civilization. So maybe we should be hopeful that this is a simulation, because otherwise...
Because they could reboot it.
Well, otherwise, either we're going to create simulations that are indistinguishable from reality, or civilization will cease to exist. Those are the 2 options.
Have you ever felt that we seem to inhabit a world, a universe that is very finely tuned to support our existence? Almost too finely tuned? I know you're going to find the next few minutes completely outrageous. I know there will be a few skeptics here in the audience. But with these 4 pieces of evidence, you just might find yourself believing what I'm about to tell you. That we may be living in a simulated universe, a computer-generated reality. Evidence number 1, a pixelated universe. Pictures and images are made up of pixels. No matter how high the resolution of an image is, it will still blur as you zoom in further. When you can see each and every individual pixel, it won't matter how much more you focus, because it holds no significance. Zooming further would have no meaning. It would reveal nothing smaller. In the real world, we can zoom down to see bacteria and viruses, then to the level of atoms, quarks, and superstrings, which are the bits and pieces that make up the whole image of reality. But like a computer screen, our reality too has a limit. Beyond Planck's length, which is the real-world equivalent of a single pixel, all sense of space and distance is lost. All meaning of space and distance ceases to exist. And exactly like a computer, our time too is discrete. It isn't continuous. Time isn't one smooth directional arrow, but made up of tiny discrete packets. It acts like the processing of a very fast computer in a progression of steady states. Think of it like a flip book, only so fast that it's almost seamless. Evidence number 2, matter is computable potential. Like an electron's potential to exist anywhere in the world until it is measured or observed, matter in our world is diffused. It doesn't have a definite shape or existence unless it is being looked at by something. The simple act of observing solidifies the action of light, and the same applies to matter and the universe. Pretty much like a video game where you're presented with the frame that you require to play. The rest of the virtual world, on the other hand, doesn't quite exist, but has the potential to be the next frame or the next level of the game. Evidence number 3, the ultimate shutdown. Our reality can be shut down. At low temperatures, things slow down. The metabolisms of cold-blooded animals, the movement of particles, and the reactions of atoms. At absolute zero, which is minus 273.15 degrees Celsius, everything comes to a complete and utter standstill. The world, the universe stops like a frozen dark emptiness. And because there would be no traveling photons, there would be nothing to see. I'd show you a picture, but it would look just like that. Have you ever tried imagining nothingness? It's not even black or echoey like we would assume, because that would still be something rather than nothing. It would be like nothing ever really existed, much like how you can access information on an unpowered computer. It's not necessarily there. As if someone had logged out and pulled the power on our world, everything black screens like a computer unplugged. And now we finally come to evidence number 4. We exist as information. Matter and energy are inextricably linked. We know that from Einstein's equation, E is equal to mc squared. But what we don't realize is that matter and energy are all secondary aspects of reality. They are simply manifestations of the most fundamental of all, information. Everything around us is information. Atoms and molecules are information. The buildings we see around us are physical representations of their blueprints. Genes are information encoded into our DNA. Light and electromagnetic waves are forms of information, like radio waves traveling at the speed of light. The electrical signals racing to and from our brains. That is information. Accepting the fact that our reality is informational, it therefore follows that it will be computable. We seem to see a pattern forming over here. Our universe is pixelated, a matter isn't as real and as solid as we'd hoped. Our reality can be shut down, and we are ultimately informational, virtual beings so comparable to a computer program that it isn't a big jump to accept that we are possibly, no, we are probably living in a computer simulation. But why is that such a big deal? Why couldn't we just go on living like we always have? Because it would radically change our priorities as a species, our ideals and beliefs. Because everything that we thought we knew would completely fall apart, and we would have to begin our understanding anew while incorporating the fact that we are a computer simulation. We would be forced to accept that everything we do is analogous to a digital virtual command, and our lives are just a couple of megabytes on some cosmic hard drive processor. Our priorities would shift from unraveling the mysteries of the quantum world to decrypting the codes of the simulation that separates us from the higher reality. Would we try to correct the world's problems in a more effective way by hacking into the program that we live in? And what does something like this mean for our own virtual creations? We are so close to switching on our own realistic virtual realities. Last month, October 2012, a supercomputer with the name of Mirror and the mission to recreate the whole existence of the universe was turned on for the first time. With a machine so powerful and so complex already at our fingertips, human simulations will not be far behind. Simulations that will be so realistic that they will be self-aware. Simulations that will believe wholly in their existence and their reality. What morals would we be bound to in such cases? Would we allow ourselves the power to shut down these simulations when we ourselves may be computer generated? Being self-aware organisms, what steps would we take to ensure that we can prevent ourselves from ever being terminated? We would probably rebel against our programmers and try to take over our own simulation so as to prevent ourselves from ever being at the mercy of anyone's whims and fancies. And if so plausible is the idea that we may soon turn on our own realistic virtual realities, what's to say that this hasn't happened before? What's to say that we aren't the product of many generations of simulations, nested reality simulations, all contained one inside of the other, all produced by some higher reality? But that raises the very obvious question. Who created the programmer? But that raises the very obvious question. Who is the ultimate creator? Who is the all-powerful computer programmer that presides over our virtual, relatively insignificant, self-reproducing simulation? And the most important question of all, who programmed the programmer? Thank you very much.
I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I am willing to talk about it. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
These are pictures of equations. I've been, for the last 15 years, trying to answer the kinds of questions that my colleagues here have been raising. And what I've come to understand is that there are these incredible pictures that contain all the information of a set of equations that are related to string theory. And it's even more bizarre than that, because when you then try to understand these pictures, you find out that buried in them are computer codes, just like the type that you find in a browser when you go surf the web. And so I'm left with the puzzle of trying to figure out whether I live in the matrix or not.
Wait, you're blowing my mind at this moment. So you're saying, are you saying your attempt to understand the fundamental operations of nature leads you to a set of equations that are indistinguishable from the equations that drive search engines and browsers on our computers?
That is correct. So
wait, I have to just be silent for a minute here. So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos?
Into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code.
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
It's not just sort of resembles computer code. You're saying it is computer code.
It's not even just is computer code. It's a special kind of computer code that was invented by a scientist named Claude Shannon in the 1940s. That's what we find very, very deeply inside the equations that occur in string theory and in general in systems that we can say are supersymmetric.
Okay. Time to go home, I think. Where are we going to go? So are you saying we're all just, there's some entity that programmed the universe and we're just expressions of their code?
Well, I didn't say that. Some of those
like the Matrix? That's what you said.
Some of those codes are showing on the screen behind you right now. They don't look like codes, but these pictures, which we call adinkras, are graphical representations of sets of equations that are based on codes. So this is, in fact, to answer your question more directly, I have, in my life, come to a very strange place because I never expected that the movie The Matrix might be an accurate representation of the place in which
Virtual minds. A popular argument for the simulation hypothesis came from University of Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom in 2003, when he suggested that members of an advanced civilization with enormous computing power might decide to run simulations of their ancestors. They would probably have the ability to run many, many such simulations, to the point where the vast majority of minds would actually be artificial ones within such simulations, rather than the original ancestral minds. So simple statistics suggest it is much more likely that we are among the simulated minds. And there are other reasons to think we might be virtual. For instance, the more we learn about the universe, the more it appears to be based on mathematical laws. Perhaps that is not a given, but a function of the nature of the universe we are living in. If I were a character in a computer game, I would also discover eventually that the rules seemed completely rigid and mathematical, said Max Tegmark, a cosmologist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. That just reflects the computer code in which it was written. Furthermore, ideas from information theory keep showing up in physics. In my research I found this very strange thing, said James Gates, a theoretical physicist at the University of Maryland. I was driven to error correcting codes. They're what make browsers work. So why were they in the equations I was studying about quarks and electrons and supersymmetry? This brought me to the stark realization that I could no longer say people like Max are crazy.